"Is this some kind of joke?" Catherine screamed, her manicured hands shaking as she pointed at the three boys standing beside Vanessa. "You invited your ex-wife to our wedding, just to humiliate her, and now she shows up in a Rolls-Royce with triplets who look just like you?" Kevin didn't move. His lips parted, but no words came. The cameras clicked, guests whispered, and across the marble aisle, Vanessa stood tall, unbothered, dressed in magenta silk, her sons clinging to each hand. The truth, long buried beneath pride and power, had just arrived, on 4 wheels, with 3 witnesses. The sky over Bellevue Avenue, Newport, was too perfect that morning, clear, blue, almost taunting. The white tents outside Beechwood Mansion billowed like sails, eager for spectacle. Inside, the staff rushed with champagne flutes, velvet cushions, and floral arrangements that cost more than some people's rent. Kevin Anderson stood at the center of it all, tall, polished, poised. A man who'd built an empire, conquered Wall Street, and now, in front of 200 elite guests, was about to claim his next trophy, Catherine Belmont. Beautiful, poised, daughter of a senator, and thoroughly impressed by his last name. But even as he adjusted his cufflinks, there was a flicker in his eyes. Something unfinished. Something that not even his bespoke tuxedo or beachfront mansion could disguise. "Sir, the Bentley's ready to bring Miss Belmont down the aisle," a coordinator said. He nodded, but his gaze lingered toward the driveway. 4 miles away, Vanessa James zipped up her son Elijah's jacket. "Mummy, do we have to go to the fancy place?" he asked, wide-eyed. Vanessa smiled gently. "Yes, baby. Just for a little while." She looked at her reflection. Simple makeup, bold lips, silk dress hugging her curves like confidence reborn. Behind her, the driver opened the door of the black Rolls-Royce, polished to a mirror. She hadn't seen Kevin in 7 years, not since he'd walked out, back when they still lived in a cramped Newark apartment with a broken heater, back when she was pregnant and he didn't believe the kids were his. He'd walked away like she was less than. Like love had an expiration date once money entered the room. Vanessa didn't come for revenge. She came for her sons. And maybe to remind Kevin of what he threw away. Inside the mansion, guests sipped champagne and whispered over gold-rimmed programs. The pianist started a soft melody. Catherine began her walk down the marble staircase, radiant in white. A drone hovered outside the stained glass windows, capturing every second. Kevin turned to look at her and smiled. That smile faded less than a minute later. Gasps echoed as the front doors swung wide open. Heads turned, every phone lifted. And there she was, Vanessa, stronger, richer, radiating something money couldn't buy. The Rolls-Royce sat idling at the curb, its doors still open. 3 boys, twins in every way, save for Elijah's dimple, stood beside her in tailored blazers. Kevin's jaw clenched. Catherine froze mid-step. Then the scream. "Is this some kind of joke?" The ceremony unraveled like a string pulled too tight. People stood, some recorded. Others just watched the billionaire's life begin to fracture. One look, one child at a time. Vanessa didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She just whispered, loud enough for Kevin to hear. "You asked me to come, so I did." And Kevin, he had nothing to say. Not yet. But he would. Kevin couldn't hear anything anymore. Not the pianist, who'd stopped playing mid-chord. Not the distant murmur of guests whispering, recording, texting. Not even Catherine's voice, which trembled with rage and disbelief as she stepped backward, her veil slipping off her shoulders. All he could see was Vanessa and the 3 little boys flanking her like truth made flesh. "You told me she was out of your life," Catherine said, voice cracked, mascara already betraying her composure. "You said she was nothing. You said she was living in a trailer, Kevin." Kevin tried to speak. Nothing came out. Vanessa didn't move. She didn't need to. The world was moving around her now. "I didn't come to cause a scene," she said, her tone calm but piercing. "You invited me. I came with what you left behind." The triplets stood close, well-dressed, quiet, each one holding onto a piece of her silk dress. Their presence made the air feel heavier. "Are they?" someone whispered near the front row. "They're his," another muttered, camera still recording. Look at the eyes. They're definitely his. Catherine turned her gaze to Kevin. Is it true? His silence said everything. The chaos exploded. The officiant stepped back. Guests began walking out, some in discomfort, others because they didn't want to miss a better angle outside. Catherine stood frozen, then yanked off the engagement ring and hurled it across the marble floor. It clattered loud like a bell tolling the death of a dream. You used me, she hissed. You told me I was your new beginning, that you'd moved on from the past. I thought I had, Kevin finally muttered. Catherine's voice dropped into something venomous. You wanted her here just so you could watch her squirm. You built this wedding to feel like your final word. But guess what? She said, stepping toward Vanessa. She didn't squirm. She didn't crawl in begging. She drove in like a queen. She turned back to Kevin, eyes blazing. And now you look like the fool. Vanessa lowered her eyes to her sons. Boys, do you know who that man is? They nodded, unsure. He's the man who helped bring you into this world. Kevin's knees buckled slightly. All the money in his accounts, all the shares in his company, all the recognition. None of it had prepared him for this. Not for the reality that the woman he thought he could break walked in stronger, wealthier, and with his legacy at her side. And just like that, somewhere behind the emotion, the camera drones continued recording, tens of thousands watching live, millions more waiting for the clips. This wasn't just scandal, this was the story. But here's the thing. Some people will watch this story and scroll away. But you're still here. You feel it, don't you? That slow, burning ache in your chest. That quiet what-if inside your gut. Don't just feel it. Subscribe. This channel tells stories that make your heart race, your voice crack, your hands sweat. If this shook you even a little, subscribe now. Not just for the story, but because deep down part of you knows you don't want to miss what happens next. Back inside, the guests were scattering like leaves in wind. Catherine's parents stormed out the side door, muttering something about embarrassment and PR nightmares. Kevin sat on a velvet bench in the corner, slumped, staring at the children. His children. Vanessa knelt and wiped a smudge off Elijah's cheek. Then, without looking at Kevin, she said quietly, I didn't come here to hurt you. I came because they asked who their father was. She stood. And I figured it was time they saw for themselves. The wedding was over, not with a kiss, not with vows, but with an exit. One that left rose petals scattered beneath empty chairs and a billionaire staring at his past like it had just walked out of a memory and into reality. Kevin stood alone in the grand foyer of Beechwood Mansion, surrounded by shattered expectations and echoing silence. The string quartet had stopped playing an hour ago. The champagne was still cold, but untouched. His guests had vanished faster than stock prices in a crash. He pulled off his cufflinks one at a time, tossing them into a silver tray. What just happened? In the circular driveway, Vanessa opened the door of the Rolls-Royce and ushered the boys in. She moved with grace, but her jaw was clenched. Her heart pounded, steady but heavy. She hadn't planned to make a scene. She hadn't rehearsed speeches or imagined confrontations. She only wanted her sons to see the man whose face they carried. But now she wanted to leave before her dignity cracked under the pressure of years spent surviving what he walked away from. Vanessa. His voice reached her just as she was sliding into the car. She paused. He stepped outside, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. I didn't expect, he started, then paused. I didn't know you'd come like this. Like what? She asked without turning. Rich? Elegant? With my sons? She turned toward him slowly, brows raised. No, Kevin, you didn't expect I'd come stronger. His throat tightened. He took a step closer. Are they really mine? Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You really need to ask. He looked at the boys, their hair, their eyes. Elijah's dimple, the same one that once charmed boardrooms and broke hearts. I didn't believe you back then, he said softly. I thought you were just trying to trap me. She laughed once, sharp, bitter. Trap you? With what? Poverty? Doctor's bills? Empty fridges? He flinched. Back inside, a photographer packed his equipment. A planner tried to reschedule floral pickups. The mansion, once glowing with celebration, now carried the cold weight of something else. Exposure. Kevin glanced around at it all. The guests who left, the future that unraveled, the woman who stood taller than any dollar amount could reach. "I didn't invite you to hurt you," he mumbled. I wanted you to see that I moved on." "You didn't move on," she replied. "You moved up. In money, not in manhood." That hit. He didn't reply. The kids stared from the window, quiet, sensing tension, but not understanding it. Vanessa glanced back, her motherly instinct overriding the storm rising behind her eyes. "I raised them alone," she said. "Every night, every fever, every birthday. You don't get to be shocked now. You don't get to act like this is new information." He stepped forward again, lowering his voice. "What do you want from me?" She blinked, then tilted her head. "What makes you think I want anything?" Kevin searched her face for anger, but there was only clarity. That's what scared him most. She didn't come for revenge. She came because she no longer needed anything from him. Not money, not closure, not permission. And that made her untouchable. It made her the most powerful person on the property. Back in the Rolls-Royce, Elijah called out softly, "Mom, can we go now?" Vanessa looked at Kevin one last time. "I let you go once," she said. "But I'm not here for second chances. I'm here because they deserve to know where they came from." She opened the door and got in. Kevin didn't stop her, because he couldn't. Not anymore. Kevin didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study at Beechwood Mansion, the fireplace casting long shadows across the mahogany floors. Outside, the Atlantic crashed against the cliffs, a sound that used to soothe him. Now, it just reminded him of everything slipping away. The wedding was a PR disaster. His phone was flooded with unanswered calls. Catherine had flown back to Washington with her family, and her father's last words still rang in his ears. "You made our daughter a headline." But none of it mattered compared to what haunted him most. 3 boys, 3 sets of eyes, all carrying his name without ever knowing it. The next morning, a knock interrupted the quiet. His assistant Dana peeked in. "She's here." Kevin straightened. "Who?" "Vanessa." He stood abruptly. "Here. Now." She didn't come alone. In the sunroom, Vanessa sat across from a young attorney. Her posture was composed, but her eyes didn't invite small talk. "I assume this isn't a social visit," Kevin said, stepping inside. "No," she replied. The attorney slid a manila folder onto the table. "Paternity confirmation," she said. "Done yesterday. Expedited." Kevin opened it slowly. His fingers trembled as he scanned the page. All 3 names, all 3 matches. No doubt, no margin of error. "They're mine," he whispered. Vanessa didn't nod, didn't flinch. "They've always been yours." The lawyer cleared her throat. "We're not here to file anything and yet, but Vanessa wants a formal agreement. Boundaries, expectations. You asked her to come here, Kevin. Now she's holding you accountable." Kevin sat down. He hated being cornered. But deep down, a small part of him felt something else. Relief. Fear. Regret. "I want to be part of their lives," he said carefully. "Whatever that looks like." Vanessa raised a brow. "Now you want to play dad?" "I made mistakes," he admitted, "but I don't want to make more." She didn't smile. She didn't soften. "Let's see if your actions can speak louder than your past." The attorney handed him a schedule. Weekends, school holidays, visits. "You can choose to show up or not, but this isn't about you anymore, it's about what's best for them." Kevin nodded slowly. Later that afternoon, Kevin found himself walking through the estate gardens, with 3 boys trailing behind him, one carrying a soccer ball, another chewing gum, the third asking what a hedge maze was. He'd never felt more awkward or more human. "You got a pool?" Elijah asked. "Yes." "Can we swim?" Kevin hesitated. Your mom said you didn't bring suits. We got shorts. He exhaled. Then yeah, you can swim. They ran ahead, laughing, and Kevin stood there in a $1,000 jacket, watching the future he didn't know he had, splash toward him. Meanwhile, Vanessa stood on the terrace, arms folded, watching through the glass doors. Her heart ached in ways she didn't want to name. She didn't trust Kevin. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But her sons deserved truth. And maybe a piece of their father, if he was man enough to earn it. That evening the sun dipped over the Newport coastline. Dinner was awkward. The boys chattered. Kevin tried. Vanessa remained quiet. But it was something. A start. Maybe not forgiveness, but proximity. And that was more than either of them expected when the invitation first landed in her mailbox. The sky over Beechwood darkened slowly, painting long shadows across the terrace where Kevin and Vanessa now stood, alone for the first time in hours. The boys were inside, playing video games in the media room. A housekeeper offered drinks. Kevin declined. Vanessa said nothing at all. The silence between them wasn't angry. It was heavy. Heavy with the weight of what was never said. You've done well for yourself, Kevin finally offered, his voice low. Vanessa didn't respond at first. You sound surprised. I guess I am. She looked at him, long and steady. You left me with nothing but a positive test, rent due, and your last voicemail. He closed his eyes. That's not fair. No, Kevin. What's not fair is crying alone in an emergency room because you blocked my number. The wind rustled the curtains. Kevin turned toward her, guilt cutting deep lines into his brow. I didn't know you were serious about the pregnancy. She scoffed. You didn't want to know. He stepped closer. I was scared. I was just starting my business. I had nothing. You had me, she snapped. Silence. You had someone who believed in you when you were eating cereal for dinner and couldn't afford gas. I was the one typing your first pitch deck at 3 a.m., Kevin. I was the one pawning my grandmother's ring so we could pay your first investor fee. She shook her head slowly. And when I needed you most, you disappeared. He swallowed hard. I told myself you were just trying to trap me with kids, that you were bitter, that if I focused on success, everything else would fade. But it didn't fade, she whispered. It grew, inside me. 3 of them. She paused. Every day I looked in their faces and wondered how you could walk away from something so perfect. Kevin sat down, suddenly tired. I was a coward. Vanessa didn't deny it. She sat across from him, her voice softer now but still firm. I went to night school with them strapped to my chest in a sling. I worked weekends, evenings. I built a real estate portfolio while rocking Elijah through asthma attacks. I bought our first duplex when they were 4. She met his eyes. I didn't come here to hurt you, but I won't pretend like you didn't. Kevin looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time, not as the girl he left behind, but as the woman who outgrew every version of him. I never asked, he said quietly, if you needed help. No, she said. You never did. And there it was, the thing that broke them, the thing he ran from, the thing she carried, and the truth that finally sat between them. Too late to fix, but never too late to feel. And you, the one watching this, you're still here, aren't you? Maybe because something in her story mirrors your own. Maybe you've been the one left behind, or the one who left. Maybe you've carried pain in silence too, whatever your reason. If this moment has moved you, even a little, subscribe. Not for the algorithm, not for the numbers, but because stories like this, they deserve to be felt, and you deserve to feel seen. Kevin stood up, exhaling slowly. You know what the worst part is? Vanessa looked up. I always knew you were telling the truth, about the kids, about everything. I just didn't want to be held accountable for the man I was. She nodded, eyes misted, not with weakness, but with clarity. Well, she said, now you are. It started with pizza, of all things. Kevin had ordered a private chef for the evening. Lobster ravioli, truffle risotto, fancy French desserts with names none of the kids could pronounce. But when Elijah took one look at the plate and whispered, "Do you have any mac and cheese?" the room cracked open. Kevin blinked, then laughed, then ordered 5 pizzas and sodas instead. By 8 p.m., the mansion's grand dining room, usually reserved for dignitaries and billion-dollar negotiations, looked like a birthday party in a middle-class kitchen. Paper napkins, greasy boxes, ketchup stains. Vanessa sat at the end of the long table, sipping sparkling water, watching her sons laugh with a man they'd only known for a few hours, but already instinctively trusted. It was strange, surreal. A tiny part of her wanted to stop smiling, another part didn't mind it at all. "Watch this," Aaron yelled, standing on his chair with a slice of pizza in each hand. "Double slice power." "Sit down," Vanessa warned, half laughing, half mom mode. Kevin chuckled. "He gets that from you." Vanessa raised a brow. "Excuse me?" "I mean, not the standing on chairs part, just the confidence," she smirked. "Nice save." Later, in the mansion's game room, the boys discovered a foosball table. The laughter echoed. Kevin and Elijah played on one side, Aaron and Malcolm on the other. Vanessa leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, pretending to scroll her phone, but really just watching. Kevin wasn't great at foosball, but the way he let Elijah win, and the way he smiled when he did, made her chest tighten. There had been so much pain, but this was almost normal. At bedtime, Kevin read them a story. His voice wasn't theatrical like Vanessa's. He stumbled over some of the character voices. Malcolm kept interrupting. Elijah fell asleep on his lap halfway through. But when it was over, and the room went quiet, Kevin didn't move. He just sat there, arms around the little boy, breathing in the moment, as if trying to hold it in place. Vanessa stepped in quietly. "I'll put him down." Kevin nodded and gently passed Elijah into her arms. Their hands brushed. It lingered. A long second. Downstairs, they didn't say much. She collected her things slowly, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Kevin followed her to the door, unsure of what to say. He opened it for her and the night air poured in, crisp, ocean-scented, heavy with memory. "I was scared today," he finally admitted. She paused in the doorway. "I didn't know how to be a dad. I still don't." Vanessa turned slightly. "No one does, not at first." A beat. "Did I do okay?" he asked, his voice soft, uncertain. She looked at him for a long time. "You did okay," she said. "Tonight." The Rolls-Royce waited at the curb. She stepped in, closed the door, and didn't look back. But Kevin stood there long after the taillights disappeared, arms folded, face unreadable, heart unfamiliar with whatever it was trying to feel. The morning sunlight cut through the kitchen windows of Beechwood Mansion like golden knives. Kevin poured himself coffee, already dressed for a meeting in the city. Vanessa had stayed in the guest wing overnight with the boys. It wasn't planned, just practical. The kids were exhausted. It had felt like the right thing to do. He didn't expect it to feel so good. They sat across from each other at the breakfast nook. The kids were still upstairs. A moment of quiet before the day began. Kevin glanced at Vanessa. "You staying another night?" She shook her head. "No, I have a conference call this afternoon." He nodded, unsure how to ask her to stay, without making it sound like a plea. "I could clear my schedule," he offered. She raised a brow. "Why?" Kevin hesitated. Then, "Because last night felt right." The words floated for a second, heavy, honest, hopeful, but they landed wrong. Vanessa's posture stiffened. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean, being with the boys, with you. It felt like family again." Vanessa's face shifted. Not soft, not warm, but cold, guarded. "Kevin," she said carefully, "don't confuse a moment of peace with a second chance. I'm not—" "Yes, you are." She stood, pushing her chair back slightly. "You abandoned us, and now you want to sweep in after a pizza night and a bedtime story and pretend it's all okay." I never said that. No, she snapped. You didn't have to. Her voice cracked, not from weakness but from the weight of memory. I raised 3 boys by myself. I stood in food bank lines. I cried through job interviews because I couldn't afford daycare. And you want to talk about one night? Kevin's face darkened. I've apologized. Once, she said, and not for everything. You're sorry for missing the past, but not for the lies. He blinked. What lies? Vanessa inhaled, deep, slow, like preparing for war. You told people I cheated, that I was unstable, that I faked the pregnancy. Kevin's mouth fell open. I heard it, Kevin. From your investors, from mutual friends. You didn't just walk away. You buried me. He looked gutted. I was trying to protect my reputation at the cost of mine. Silence, thick, ugly, real. You still think you're the victim in all this, she whispered. I don't. Then why are you acting like I should be grateful you're finally showing up? The words stabbed deep. I never asked for your thanks. No, she said. You just assumed it would come. The air shifted. The hope from last night dissolved like sugar in water. Gone. Vanessa picked up her purse. I stayed for them, that's all. Don't twist it into something it's not. Vanessa, wait. No, she said sharply. We're done here. She walked toward the door. Kevin followed her. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought maybe... She spun on her heel, eyes blazing. You thought you could lose me, erase me, replace me, and then recover me like I'm some old file you accidentally deleted. He had no reply. She opened the door. Elijah! She called up the stairs, voice shaking. The boys came down quickly, confused by the tension. Kevin tried to catch her eyes. She didn't let him. And just like that, they were gone. Again. The silence inside Beechwood Mansion was suffocating. Kevin stood by the window in the study, watching the ocean roll in and out like it was mocking him. The boys were gone. Vanessa was gone. And all that remained were echoes. He thought he was doing the right thing, inviting her, letting the boys visit, trying to piece together something that resembled fatherhood. But last night's warmth and this morning's explosion played back in his head like 2 scenes from 2 different lives. How did it unravel so fast? He sat at his desk, opened his laptop, and stared at the blinking cursor in an email draft he'd started the night before. Subject, custody options. He deleted the subject line, then the body, then shut the laptop. Down the hall he passed the boys' empty guest room. Crayons still scattered on the desk, a sock under the bed, a juice box straw wrapper near the pillow, tiny messes. But somehow, they felt like memories he'd already started to miss. Elsewhere in the city, Vanessa stood outside her real estate office in a quiet corner of Providence. Her team had gone ahead to the luncheon. She needed air and space. She leaned against the cool brick wall, eyes closed. Part of her wanted to shut the door for good, cut the cord, move on. She had done it before, alone. But something about the look in Kevin's eyes this morning made it hard. It wasn't charm, not guilt, not pity. It was remorse. The kind that doesn't perform, the kind that aches. Inside her purse, her phone buzzed. Kevin's name lit up. She didn't answer, but she didn't block him either. Instead, she walked slowly down the sidewalk, unsure of what she was hoping he'd say, if he even knew what he wanted to say. Back at Beechwood, Kevin walked out onto the cliffs behind the estate. The wind whipped at his jacket. Below, the sea hit rock with force. Nature's reminder of what happens when you crash headfirst into something bigger than yourself. He pulled out his phone, typed, deleted, typed again. Then finally, a voice note. Not rehearsed, not perfect, just real. Vanessa, I don't expect forgiveness, and I won't ask you to come back because I don't deserve that kind of grace, but I need you to know this. What I did back then, leaving, denying, lying, it wasn't about you. It was about the scared, selfish man I was too ashamed to admit I'd become. Watching our sons laugh last night, that was the first time I understood what real legacy means. Not stocks, not houses, them. If I only get the chance to know them from a distance, I'll take it. If you never speak to me again, I'll understand, but I'll never stop trying to become the kind of man they'd be proud to know. He hit send, stared at the ocean again, and waited. Vanessa listened to the message alone in her car. No music, no movement, just that voice, finally stripped of pride, image, and agenda. A long pause followed. Then, without even thinking, she pressed save. She didn't text back, not yet. But the stone she'd kept around her heart for 7 years, it shifted. And you, sitting there, still watching this story unfold, you didn't click away. You felt that shift, didn't you? You felt that pause in her silence. That maybe, just maybe, something inside her changed. So ask yourself, if someone tried to fix the very thing they broke in you, would you let them? If that question made your chest tighten, subscribe. Because stories like this aren't just about drama. They're about the choices we all have to make when pride collides with love. And sometimes, you only get one chance to make the right call. 1 week later, Kevin stood outside a modest townhouse in East Providence, holding a bouquet of yellow tulips. Not roses, not orchids. Vanessa once told him, long ago, that tulips felt like forgiveness. The sun hung low, casting amber light across the neighborhood. Kids rode bikes, sprinklers ticked in front lawns. It was the kind of place Kevin never imagined himself before. And now, somehow, it felt truer than all the mansions he'd built. The door opened slowly. Vanessa stood there, phone in hand, barefaced, no silk dress, just a white tee and denim. Still radiant. She looked at the flowers, then at him. "You came alone," she said. Kevin nodded. "I wasn't sure if I should." She stepped aside. "You're here now." Inside, the boys were in the living room, building Lego castles and arguing over who got the dragon piece. Kevin glanced at them. Malcolm noticed him first. He ran over without hesitation. "Hey, you came back!" Kevin dropped to one knee, tulips in hand. "I told you I would." Later, they all sat on the floor, Vanessa, Kevin, and the boys, surrounded by scattered plastic bricks and half-finished juice boxes. Kevin helped Elijah fix a wing on his spaceship. Vanessa watched them, quiet, thoughtful. The sunlight moved across the floor slowly, warm and golden. No dramatic speeches, no teary apologies, just presence. After the kids went upstairs for a nap, Kevin stood at the door, unsure if he should linger. Vanessa walked him out. At the threshold, she looked at him. "You showed up," she said softly. "I'll keep doing that," he replied, "if you'll let me." She was quiet. Then she reached for his hand. Not tightly, just enough to let him know. Maybe. As he stepped outside, she called after him, "Kevin?" He turned. Vanessa smiled, the kind that held sadness and hope all at once. "Next time, bring mac and cheese." He laughed. "I will." And as he walked to his car, something inside him shifted. Not just regret, not just hope, but something new. A future that wasn't about wealth or image, but connection, real, raw, earned. And if you've watched this far, if you made it through the silence, the screaming, the heartbreak, and the healing, then you felt it too. Because this isn't just a story about a billionaire or a wedding or a woman in silk. It's about what we do after the damage is done, about whether we choose silence or repair. So if this moment stayed with you, and even a little, subscribe. Not because we need the numbers, but because you need stories that remind you how strong you are, how powerful forgiveness can be, how love, even when lost, can still find its way home.